Hi class, I'm going to discuss with you the project you have to design your survey. There are a couple of things I want to clarify as you go ahead and read through the rubric and the example that I have posted for you on the link on your class. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about the purpose of the survey. Through our class, this is how you will practice or demonstrate your practical knowledge of what we're learning. So your goal at the end of the class through these next 5 weeks is to have one survey. And you will do this through several different submissions. Your first survey here that you're submitting is just how are you designing it. That way I can give you feedback and make sure you have everything you need to be successful for the rest of the class. Then your second submission will be your initial analysis of the survey. So that will be the next week. Following that, you're going to add to your survey. So after you have your design and then your initial analysis, you're going to show me chapter 9, which is confidence interval, and then you're going to show me chapter 10, which is a hypothesis test, and then you're going to show me chapter 13, which is correlation. So all three of those statistical tests, which we will learn later in class, they will all be added on to make 5 different submissions, but it's going to be one long survey. And again, the purpose of this is because you're only going to send out one, survey, I guess, to your sample. So I want one report that analyzes all the data, but the report's going to become more statistically in-depth. The computations are going to become more mathematical. So that way, hopefully, you'll have a very well-rounded and determined conclusion at the end that will be affected by all the different mathematics you're going to do. Okay, so the first part here, I have split this part up to just give me the design of your survey. So what am I looking for on this part? Well, I want to make sure that you understand the outline here needs to be submitted in Word. It needs to be written in paragraph form or report form. So that means you're going to have 3 parts of this first document that you're giving me, but you need to start with an introduction. So your introduction is it's formally written and it is explaining why you're doing the survey. And I have a comment here. I don't want a survey that asks for people's favorite flavor of ice cream or how many times they go out for ice cream simply because you have to do a report for class. However, if you're going to throw an end of the summer barbecue and you're going to serve ice cream as dessert, then those questions become purposeful. So the introduction here will make or break the validity of why you're doing your survey. So if you need to know people's favorite flavor of ice cream because you're going to figure out whoever wants more or a percentage of vanilla to buy versus a percentage of chocolate to buy, fine. I need that purpose. Okay, again, this introduction is pretty much going to be your first paragraph. Then the second part of this design survey report is going to be your population, random method, and sample selection. I need all 3 of those pieces. So you'll describe to me who is your population. Is it your neighborhood? Is it your friends? Is it people from Facebook? Is it your coworkers? Excuse me. Is it people who visit the farmer's market? What is your population? The second thing you're going to do is tell me how you will randomly select your survey. Now, careful on this. You have to use a random selection. You have to use some mathematical tool to do that. It is not random just because you say it. In fact, here's the catch. You cannot actually pick anything out of the selection process. So if you say in your survey or in your report, I randomly selected 30 people, I know right away it's wrong. You cannot actually choose anybody. Okay, so what are random methods? You can say I took all the people on my email list, put them in a hat, and I drew out 30 names. There, that's random because you didn't know what names were on the pieces of paper that you were drawing. You can say that I put, the coworkers in alphabetical order in Excel, and I rolled a die. The die gave me a 3, so I picked every 3rd person on this list until I got to 30. And I picked every 3rd person through the list, and I went back through the list, picking every 3rd person, starting with the next one down, until I got to 30. Just because your list is, say, only 45 people long, if you want 30 people, going every 3rd is not going to get you to 30, but you can keep going through that list as long as you don't choose the people. Just the way our brains work, we're not able to randomly choose people, even if I try to select random numbers. 2, 5, 1, 7, 10, 11, 20. So even if I'm trying to select random numbers here, My brain is constantly thinking of even versus odds, small versus large. Am I repeating numbers? Am I not repeating numbers? My brain just naturally looks for those patterns. So I cannot come up with random numbers. I cannot come up with a random list because I'm just affected by the names. You know, how does it look? Is it a short name or a long name? Is it down the list or is it up the list? So you have to use a random selection method. Okay, I mentioned drawing names out of a hat. I mentioned listing names in alphabetical order, rolling a dice to go through a list. If you're on Facebook and you're going to choose to send a survey, you can do SurveyMonkey or whatever on Facebook. Then when you go to your friends list, I believe it automatically generates like 3 different lists. So you could just roll your die until you get a 1, 2, or 3. And that would be which list you pick. That's a really good way to do it on Facebook. You can use Excel's random number generator. So that can say, I want to pick a number between 1 and 62. And you can do that 30 times if you want 30 people. Or you can look at the random list in the back of the book. Okay, so just to reiterate what the second part of your report is saying is you will describe your population. Who is it? How many people are there? Then you will explain to me in detail your random selection method. You do not get points by saying I randomly selected 30 people. That's not sufficient enough, and I cannot determine that you've done it correctly. Then you also need to tell me, who you picked. So you need to go through and say, I picked every third person on the list until I got to 30. Okay, that's fine. I need to know the final number of your sample. Okay, the third part of this design report will be your questions, and I actually do need them listed out for this part. If you don't want to continue to list them out for the remainder reports, that's fine, because you'll be putting your analysis in, so you can just give me the questions as you give me your analysis. But for this submission, I do need the questions. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I really want you to submit this part without any analysis, is because I want to give you feedback on those questions. So I do not have a limit or a maximum number of questions. If you're doing SurveyMonkey, there's a limit that they put on that just for the trial period. But for me as a teacher, there's no limit. There's no minimum. But you have to have enough information to complete the rest of the class. So here's my one requirement. You have to have 2 numerical questions. Okay, you have to have 2 numerical questions. If you don't, not only will you miss points, but you're going to be at a loss for what to do for our last project. You have to include background information. So that can be age, that can be gender, that can be anything. So let's say you're going to do a survey about DVR. Okay, people have DVR in their homes. How often is it used? So then you might want to know how many number of TVs do they have in their house? How many hours do they record every week? What percent is filled up in their memory. So you can ask those kind of questions. Again, background, I don't necessarily care how many background questions you have. I just want it to be thorough. You need to have enough information to be able to answer your questions. And that really does stem from the purpose, from your introduction. Whatever you said was in your introduction, that's what I'm going to go off of when I'm reading your questions. I'm going to make sure that you have enough to actually answer your purpose. And I'm also going to make sure you have 2 numerical questions so you can do your last project. Okay, well, that is pretty much all I needed to explain. Again, read the rubric and read through the example and email me if you have any questions. Thanks.